Alright, listen up, Verse Peace fans. If you've ever wondered why some players seem completely unstoppable in PvP, the answer is simple. Races matter. A lot. Your race in Verse Peace isn't just some cosmetic choice, it directly affects your damage, survivability, and overall power level. In fact, race rerolls are so valuable that they're basically a form of currency in trades. So yeah, choosing the right race can be the difference between dominating the battlefield or getting clapped in seconds. But don't worry, we've got you covered. In this video, we're breaking down the best races in Verse Peace so you know exactly what to aim for when re-rolling. Whether you're looking for insane combat buffs, near invulnerability in PvP, or just the most fun playstyle, this tier list will help you make the best choice. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into the ultimate Verse Peace races guide. I'm quickly moving on to the video and I'm ranking races in Verse Peace. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of tier list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching.
A very small portion of the audience is subscribed to the channel. Please don't forget to subscribe if you like these types of videos. Thanks.
The races in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Arrancar, Quincy, Reaper, Fishman, Skypian, and Human. Alright, listen up, because we're about to dive into the C tier races in Verse Peace. The ones that are kinda mid, but hey, they've got their moments. If you rolled one of these, don't panic. Some of them are actually solid in the early game, while others, well, let's just say you might want to reroll. Let's break them down. Arrancar is actually one of the better races in this tier, especially if you're just starting out. The 1.5x special damage multiplier gives you a solid damage boost, making your special attacks hit harder than usual. If you're running a build that relies on abilities rather than basic attacks, this race can carry you for a while. But later in the game, stronger races start to outshine Arrancar, and that damage multiplier just isn't enough to keep up. Still, for an early game grind, it's a pretty decent pick. Next up, we got Quincy, and it's okay. The 15% reduced incoming damage sounds good on paper, and it can help in PvP, but it's nothing game-changing. You'll definitely feel tankier compared to some other races, but it won't save you if your opponent is just flat out better than you. If you like playing defensively or want a bit more survivability, Quincy might be worth keeping. But if you're looking for big damage boosts or flashy abilities, this ain't it. Now, for all the sword mains out there, Reaper might catch your attention. This race comes with a 1.5x sword damage multiplier, which means if you're rocking a sword-based build, you'll be cutting through enemies faster than usual. It's a solid pick if you're committed to the sword play, but if you're more into devil fruits or ranged combat, this race won't do much for you. It's a bit too niche, which is why it lands in C tier. And now, let's talk about Fishman. Look, I'm just gonna say it. This race is kinda useless. The only real perk is faster swimming speed, which would be cool if this was a game about racing through the ocean, but it's not. In combat, this race brings absolutely nothing to the table. Unless you just love the idea of being able to swim faster, you should re-roll immediately. On the flip side, Skypian actually has some utility. Being able to Geppo jump 10 times is pretty nice, especially for moving around the map or escaping bad situations. If you like parkour or just want to be harder to hit in PvP, this race isn't the worst. But outside of movement, it doesn't offer much else. It's fun, but not game-breaking. And finally, Human. Yeah, no bonuses, no buffs, no special abilities, it's just Human. I mean, what do you even want me to say? If you roll this, just accept your fate and re-roll as fast as possible. There is literally no reason to stick with it unless you enjoy unnecessary suffering. So there you have it. Every C tier race in Verse Peace, some of them are decent if you're just starting out, like Arrancar and Reaper, while others, like Fishman and Human, are basically dead weight. If you get stuck with one of these, don't stress too much, but if you can re-roll, you might want to consider it. The races in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Slime, Vessel, Vampire, Angelica, and Saya. Oh, you thought the best races in Verse Peace were all locked behind insane RNG. Think again. Today, we're diving into the B tier races, and trust me, these are way better than you might think. They may not be the absolute best, but they've got some seriously solid perks that make them dangerous in both PvP and PvE. Let's break it down. First up, we've got Slime, and I know what you're thinking, how is a little blob supposed to be useful? Well, when you take 80% less incoming damage, suddenly, you're not just a blob, you're a tank. This race is ridiculously annoying to fight against in PvP because you're basically shrugging off most of the damage. If you know how to play defensively, this race can make you a nightmare to take down. Next, we've got Vessel, a mythical race that comes with some serious extra damage potential. First off, it gives you a 1.5x damage multiplier, and on top of that, your attacks stun enemies and deal an extra 25% damage. That means you're constantly locking enemies in place while melting their HP. If you love playing aggressively, this race is going to be a lot of fun, both in PvP and PvE. Speaking of fun, let's talk about Vampire. It's got a 1.25x damage multiplier, but the real reason you want it is for the lifesteal. Every hit you land heals you, which makes it super strong in long fights. If you're grinding bosses or constantly fighting waves of enemies, this race will keep you alive longer than most others. Plus, you need Vampire for the Alucard spec, which is definitely something to consider. Now, if you're looking for a mix of utility and damage, then Angelica is a great pick. It gives a 1.25x damage boost, stuns enemies, and adds 20% extra damage to your attacks. That stun effect makes it really effective in both PvE and PvP, since you can stop enemies from countering while dishing out serious damage. It's not the flashiest race, but it gets the job done really well. And of course, we can't forget about Saya. This one's a PvP focused race with 70% damage reduction, making you way harder to kill. But here's the real reason people want it. It's required for the Goku spec. If you're planning on going for that insane power boost, you'll definitely want to roll for Saya at some point. Even without the spec, the tankiness alone makes it super viable in fights. So, what's the verdict on these B tier races? Honestly, they're pretty underrated. If you're lucky enough to get any of these, you're in a really solid spot, whether you want to dominate in PvP, farm bosses, or just become an unkillable tank. Sure, they're not S tier, but let's be real, most people aren't rolling for the rarest races anyway. These will absolutely carry you through the game, and you won't regret using them. Alright, that's it for the B tier races. Which one do you think is the best? Let me know in the comments, and if you're still trying to roll for an S tier race, well, good luck, because you're gonna need it. The races in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: Dullahan, Half Cyborg, Demonic, and Truth Seeker. Oh, you thought you had the best race in Verse Piece? Think again, because today we're diving into the A tier races, the ones that don't quite reach God tier status, but are still absolute monsters in both PvP and PvE. If you've been struggling to pick a race that fits your playstyle, sit back, relax, and let's break these down one by one. First up, we have Dullahan, and this race is straight up a menace when the sun goes down. During the day, meh, you're dealing half damage, but when night falls, boom, triple damage. That's right, 3x multiplier at night, making you an absolute nightmare in PvE. Plus, you get a burn passive that scales with special, meaning the more you invest in it, the more you'll watch your enemies melt. If you like the idea of going full-on Shadow Demon mode after dark, Dullahan is your pick. Next, we have Half Cyborg, and let me tell you, this race is tankier than your Wi-Fi router during a storm. With a 100% HP boost and a ridiculous 75% damage reduction, you're basically walking around in a mini-boss suit. This makes Half Cyborg one of the strongest races for PvP because, let's be real, nobody wants to fight an opponent who just refuses to die. PvE. It's decent, but the real value is in those high-stakes PvP battles where survival is everything. Now, let's talk about Demonic, because this race is exactly what it sounds like. Demonic. You get a 1.75x damage multiplier, which is already amazing, but the real kicker, you stop enemies from regenerating. That means no more running away to heal mid-fight. Once you engage, it's do or die. This race shines in both PvP and PvE, making it one of the most balanced choices in the A tier. If you want to dish out serious damage while making sure your enemies stay down, Demonic is the way to go. And finally, we've got Truth Seeker, the go-to choice for sword mains. If you love slicing through enemies like a hot knife through butter, this race is perfect for you. You get a 2.5x sword damage multiplier, 50% more HP, and while your special damage is locked at 1x, let's be real, who cares when your sword is doing all the work? Oh, and did I mention it's required for Toji Unleashed? That alone makes it a must-have for any hardcore player looking to maximize their potential, so there you have it. These A-tier races might not be the absolute best in Verse Piece, but they're still insanely powerful and can dominate in the right hands. Whether you're looking for insane nighttime damage, unkillable tankiness, regeneration denial, or sword mastery, there's something here for everyone. So which one are you rocking? Drop it in the comments. The races in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Fallen Angel, Contractor, Shadow, and Dragonic. Alright, listen up, because what I'm about to tell you will completely change how you play Verse Peace. If you've ever wondered what the absolute best races in the game are, you're in the right place. We're not talking about good races. No, we're talking about the ones so broken they might as well come with a win the game button. So grab your notepad, because if you want to dominate PvE or PvP, these are the S tier races you need to know about. First up, let's talk about Fallen, and no, we're not talking about some weak, edgy Fallen Angel cliche. This race is straight up the best PvE race in the game. Why? Oh, I don't know. Maybe because it multiplies your damage by 2.75x and lets your attacks spawn shining swords that deal crazy damage and bind enemies in place. You know, just in case you wanted to delete enemies before they even have a chance to react. Want to get it? Better start grinding for the Fallen Angel quest, because trust me, this one is worth the effort. Now, let's say you like your damage served with a side of explosions. Enter Contractor, the second best PvE race and an absolute menace in PvP. This race gives you a 2x damage multiplier, but here's where things get spicy. Every 5 hits, you explode, yes, explode, dealing 20% of your max HP as damage to nearby enemies. Oh, and did I mention? The explosion also heals you, so not only are you blowing things up, but you're also keeping yourself alive while doing it. Fair? Absolutely not. Fun? You bet. But maybe PvE isn't your thing and you just want to be completely unkillable in PvP. Well, guess what? Shadow has entered the chat. This race is absolutely disgusting in 1v1s because you take 0 damage from other players. Yeah, you heard that right. 100% damage reduction in PvP. You're not tanky, you're literally invincible. If you've ever wanted to troll people by watching them hit you for no reason at all, Shadow is your race. Just keep in mind, it's insanely rare at 0.05% drop rate, so good luck rolling for it. And finally, let's talk about Dragonic, because let's be real, if a race has dragon in the name, it's probably insane. This one boosts your damage by 2.25x, making it a top tier PvE option. But the real kicker? It's required to unlock the Rimuru spec. If you know, you know. Rimuru is one of the most busted specs in the game, so if you ever plan on getting it, you need Dragonic. It's also decent in PvP, but its real strength shines in PvE, where you can just bulldoze through everything. So there you have it, the S tier races of Verse Peace. Whether you want to annihilate bosses, explode on impact, take 0 damage, or prepare for Rimuru, these races are the best of the best. Now, which one are you rolling for? Let me know in the comments, and if you've somehow already got Shadow, just know, I'm incredibly jealous. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.